So very good afternoon to everyone joining us for the live and who'll be watching us on recording very soon. Welcome to today's panel discussion in the series of Visionary School Leaders Share on the topic of incorporating design thinking in schools. And this is a topic very, very close to our hearts because it's a core process, a mindset, a philosophy that we use at our workplace, with schools, and the challenges we host. And I'm so delighted to have an esteemed panel from diverse backgrounds today, but with a common passion of education, discussing with us this topic today. So, to quickly introduce our eminent panelists for today, we have Dr. Aparna Morris, ma'am. Dr. Aparna Morris is the principal of SP Mandal's SPM Public School, Pune, and boasts a track record of 34 years of extensive experience in the field of education. With a wealth of administrative expertise, she holds a PhD in education, a diploma in school management, an MEd and MA in English, a BEd in science and English methodologies, and a BSc in chemistry. A highly driven educationist, she exhibits a profound commitment into crafting innovative teaching approaches. Her adeptness in engaging with educators, combined with her proficiency in cultivating a dynamic learning atmosphere amidst a rigorously structured administrative framework, underscores her exceptional abilities. So, thank you so much for joining us today, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you so much for calling me.
Next on the panelist, we have Ms. Dipika Rao, a distinguished education leader with over 27 years of experience. She currently holds a key role serving as a principal at a reputed school of India, the Oakridge International School, Gachibowli, Hyderabad, and Director of Education at North Anglia Education India. Her career includes notable positions such as the director at GEMS Kolkata, principal at DPSG Gurgaon, head of school at EISB in Bangalore, and head of the secondary at Green Valley International School in Spain. Ma'am's strength lies in her ability to devise and implement effective strategies that enable schools to carve out a niche for themselves. She firmly believes that true education must result in meaningful action and be contextual in the real world. And therefore, her vision to create an educational environment that integrates technology, aligns with global expectation, and fosters resilience and flexibility in students is something that shines through all of their students. And I've personally been a witness to their students exhibiting such qualities. So welcome, ma'am, to the panel today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. And nice to meet everyone.
And moving on, we have Dr. Pooja Misal. She's the driving force behind the SMEF's BRICS group of institutes. She's a trailblazer in the field of education, armed with an MBA from Cardiff, a PhD in education, and a certification in global career counseling from UCLA. She constantly pushes the boundaries of learning and imparting knowledge. At the age of 25, she fearlessly founded the BRIC group of institutes, setting a new standard in educational excellence. She's also launched a hybrid edtech platform called BrickETC, offering students an informed path to their future. And her relentless pursuit of excellence continues to inspire and envision a future with additional world-class institutes and eventually transforming BRIC into a private university. So we're so delighted to have the dynamic Pooja ma'am on the panel today. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you for collaborating with me.
Perfect. So without further ado, let's deep dive into this whole process of design thinking and how can we incorporate that in schools. Design thinking has been a buzzword in the industry, in the design field, and then in the education field, and it's got more impetus after the new NEP 2020, trying to encourage all schools to use that. So to start off with, since you're from the design field, Pooja ma'am, I'd love you to share for everybody what is design thinking in a layman's perspective.
So the moment you hear the word design, I think most of us, think about drawing something pretty or making something look nicer. But design thinking is associated with finding a very easy solution for a common problem or an uncommon problem. So being able to make the user's life or journey for whatever they are doing easier is achieved via design thinking. It basically is something that teaches them to solve a problem by actually observing it, being empathetic to people who have problems with it, and come up with solutions that can be achievable and practical. So that is what design thinking is, and that is how each and every subject rather should be, taught in that, keeping that in mind.
Absolutely. Over to you, Dipika, ma'am. Based
Okay.
on your understanding of design thinking, why do you think it's important to incorporate this approach in the school curriculum to begin with?
Okay, I'll just take a quick 1 minute to kind of talk about a personal anecdote, which at that time I
Sure.
never thought of as design thinking and what it means today. So when I was in grade 11 in a CBSE school, there used to be something called a science fair. And around the same time, we were one day traveling by a local bus and we saw a group of people who were deaf and dumb. And we started talking about how they must be communicating with each other, and what about when they have children? How does the mother get to know that the child is crying or needs attention if she's not facing the child? So all this led to the creation of me and one of my friends. We created a contraption which was like a watch. And if you wear it, if a deaf and dumb mother wears it on her wrist and she's anywhere in the house, the minute the baby cries, there is a flashing signal on that. And
Lovely.
yeah, and we went on to win at the zonal level and national level, but we never thought of it as an innovation or something great that we had created. We were all kids, and we were all kids in a very simple time. So there was no great value or thought that we attached to it. The kids today would think of actually extending the idea and making a lot of money out of it. We were not a product of the Instagrams and Facebooks, and we were not living in that age. So after growing up, when I look back at it, one was that episode, and the third is if you look at the recent years, the word design thinking, innovation, and empathy, they sprang into our consciousness at the same time, and they were also kind of being. I mean, we were constantly being reminded of these three words almost in the same breath. And if you look, it's a cycle. It arises from empathy. Everything arises from empathy. When do you want to support somebody? When do you want to find solutions? When there is a challenge. And the challenge that is usually attached with human beings, the core at which is empathy. So empathy gives rise to this whole process of design, which is all about finding creative solutions. And it's also about all the knowledge that you are gaining in schools, along with the skills that are being imparted to you, and some of them which you might want to acquire on your own, and you make an effort to find creative solutions. So it involves a lot of knowledge that is being imparted externally, and a very innate human ingenuity that all of our children possess. But unfortunately, the school systems kind of tend to negate it, or put it into boundaries and structures where it eventually dies out. So for me, I think design thinking is curiosity that we all came up and we were born with, and it's something that we would like to nurture. So those are my two interesting episodes from my life where I think of design thinking in this way.
Wonderful. And congratulations. I think way before innovation became a buzzword, I think you were right there as a torchbearer leading that path.
I never thought of us as this. We were just a bunch of
Yeah,
giggling
but that was an amazing
16-year-olds.
innovation.
Giggling 16-year-olds who just enjoyed all the attention we got at science fairs. That's all.
Lovely.
Wonderful. Aparna, ma'am, we would love to know from you, since your school caters to a large demographic, pot culture of different children from different, demographics coming in. How important do you think is design thinking? Because someone famously, very beautifully said that innovation is most required in a population which is deprived of this whole process in itself, right? So, how important do you think is design thinking in this school system ecosystem at large?
See, as Deepika ma'am rightly said, we are, I think, pretty old school teachers who have seen generations. We have seen quite a few batches of students coming in and going out. And as she rightly pointed out, before innovation became the buzzword, we were kind of at our own level doing things, which was design thinking, but we didn't know that what we were doing is design thinking. We just went with the flow. And as you so rightly said, nowadays any school is a potpourri of students coming in from different backgrounds, different cultures, and along with the students, we cater to a large number of parent population also who have different kinds of varied thinking. So it is at times it gets, yes, it does get very challenging to have design thinking, because design thinking is a process. It has to be free, it has to be inhibited, and there are so many wonderful steps to design thinking before you actually zero on to a prototype, and then you actually implement it and all that. But I feel it is extremely important, because one, it fosters creativity, it fosters collaboration among students, and there is so much of brainstorming that happens at the very first level of empathy. You first understand what is the problem which is faced by the user. You become more you are attuned into the user's needs. In today's culture, wherein it is me myself, understanding what problem you may be facing, or a small population at large may be facing, and trying to find a solution to that in a proper strategically planned steps. I think this is very, very important for us to introduce it at the school level. And then it encourages collaboration, it encourages communication. Students come together, understand each other, they learn to listen to each other, where nowadays we always say nobody is in a mood to listen. So design thinking wants everybody to sit together, listen to each other, and then we arrive at a solution. And this is very, very important for future careers. That's what I really feel. Design thinking is very important for future careers. It also develops resilience, adaptability. There are so many wonderful what you can say values that we are developing through design thinking. So I think it's very, very important at the school level to understand, one, what is design thinking, to introduce it in schools, to create an atmosphere of design thinking, and to incorporate not only the students, but even the teachers need to be immersed properly, professionally, be engaged into this culture of design thinking. That's what I personally feel.
Wonderful.
Just
I
a
think you
little note
summarized
I'd like
all of
to
those
add here.
beautifully. Yes.
Yes. So India inherently is called a Jugadu country, and the Jugad is nothing but design thinking. So if you go to the remote areas of our country where they don't have many resources and they don't have anyone coming and giving them those resources, they start thinking on their feet and they start innovating things for their own use.
Agree.
Like for example, that boy who made a wheelbarrow kind of a instrument for his mother so that she didn't have to carry heavy jugs of water or heavy matkas of water. And what is that? That is solving a problem which is close to his heart, and helping his mother out and maybe more women out. So that Jagaru mentality is there in our country. Sometimes what happens, because of the traditional disciplined education system that we also have to go through, which is very, very, very important, these kind of things get pushed back, and it comes out much later. But the whole skill of observing and finding your own solution to it, if we stop spoon feeding, I think it will be simpler.
Yeah,
Right. So our role essentially as educators is to let the children who are innately curious, innately ideators and problem solvers just emerge. Now, having worked with the Oakridge International School for a lot of years and having closely seen some of the students in the Innoventure and the Trailblazer coming up with immensely profound practical ideas, I know the school implements design thinking as a process. So, Dipika ma'am, we would love to hear from you. What are some specific ways that you have integrated design thinking into the school curriculum, and what are the kind of, or can you share some examples, projects, processes that the school follows in trying to foster that and enable children to work on these kind of projects?
Yeah. So there is, there is a very, very conscious kind of an effort in some segments of the school. So this is a slightly complex school in terms of the fact that we have a dual curriculum. So we have the IB and the CBSC. And interestingly, the CBSC is only 20% of the school, 20 to 22% of the school, and the remaining is all IB curriculum. However, the access to resources and opportunities is equal for all. So if you look at this whole complexity of the two curriculums and how do we meet the expectations, in the MYB program, the middle years of IB, design is a subject that the students have to compulsorily study. And eventually it translates into a community project in grade 9, which is a qualifying criteria for grade 10 examination. And then a personal project in grade 10. We have almost 980 students in MYP. That's the strength. So if you look at an international school, it's almost akin to that of an international school. Usually it's like this. Now, so obviously these are the students that are going through the iteration of what a design process is all about and leading it up to a community project, which is successfully done, and then a personal project. These two are qualifying criteria for your board examination for grade 10. For CBSE students, we also have a same opportunity. So what we do is that within the timetable, we've created a time which is spent on, let's say, innovation and design. So students, what they do is they basically come up with projects which we incubate in school. And some of these projects they carry with them, and some other projects they want to give it to somebody else. Like we had a project called EduGrow. Now, EduGrow was a peer-to-peer teaching. Now, when you do a peer-to-peer teaching, there is a lot of legality involved in that because all the kids are under 18. There is all those IT laws, the safety, the safeguarding, not just from the Nord Anglia perspective, because that's very strong, but also from the Indian perspective in terms of the cyber security, the cyber safety of students, the parental approvals, the relationship management between the person who's teaching and the person who's studying. How do you kind of manage that? And very beautifully, a group of boys had come together to actually create EduGrow with all these safety practices in mind. And then finally, they ran it very successfully for 2 years. And now they have passed on the baton to the next council. And they're actually formulating this into a company, which they want to register, and they want to give it to the school to run it. That's a very, very successful example of what innovation is all about. So it's also taking care of the fact that we have this huge tuition industry that is running on the side. I mean, we know that tuition industry is larger than the school industry in this country. Yes, so how do we take care of, how do we take care of this and how do we support students correctly? Because we do have IB students going for tuitions to teachers from CBSE. And with no disrespect, but every system has a different assessment. And to understand how to kind of coach a student, the assessment must come in. So that is one. The second one, which we had, was very interesting. It's the fact that most of our rural areas do not have access to potable water. So one of our students, his grandparents live in a village. So he had been going there as a kid and he realized comes from a very wealthy background, but that most people do not have access to potable water. So what he did was he created a sedimentation unit. He just used the sedimentation process. So he created a sedimentation unit, attached it to the big tanker overhead, and all made from local resources, the sand, the stones, the rocks, the gravel, all were locally kind of procured. And the village people were engaged with it. And he taught them all for 6 months. And he used to go, he actually trained people. He deputed somebody who would measure the pH of the water every day, who would do all the biological tests on it, who taught the villagers as to how you could do it for yourself every day. So he did this for 6 months and finally he handed it over to the village. And then he moved on to the next. So he's probably ended up covering 6 to 7 villages in that district by now. And he intends to make this into an ongoing, and every time do something and pass it to the villagers. So it's also about empowerment. It's about creating a culture of empowerment at the end, that you are responsible for this and there is hardly any money involved with this. And the structure that he has created has a life of about 12 years. So after 12 years, you will need to kind of dismantle it and put it back again. So there is also the longevity that has been taken care of. So I could think of these two immediate examples, but there are plenty like that.
Right. So we want to take just a minute to understand when and how, because I understand timetable and resource management, it plays such a critical role in a school framework. How do we allocate that, especially with the CBSE schools? The IB still has a framework for that. How are we giving children that time, that space to innovate, or a framework to innovate and work on these projects along with the so-called curriculum that we have to abide by?
Okay, so we have a lesson called I mean, you can call it by any name. We have it a PSHE, which is about your personal, social, health, and environment. So these are the four things, and this is usually given to the class teacher. It could be a lesson where we could be discussing a common topic, and this is also the time where students come up with the innovative projects. So it happens every week, which means on a monthly basis, a 4-hour schedule is there. Then we have one working Saturday for staff, on which day the students can come in and they can work on their projects. And if they want, they seek a supervisor from school. If they do not want to seek a supervisor from school, we just give them the space and the fact that you can come and work together. And the fact is that, I mean, the Oakridge does have a certain kind of a clientele where they also have access to a lot of networking that their parents have in the external community. So getting support sometimes becomes easy. And if they cannot get the kind of access that they need or the expertise that we need, so the school supports them in identifying the right people and we get them the expertise that is required for this. Like the cyber security, etc. We are also a part of the Hyderabad cyber security kind of awareness project. So we are one of the hub schools. We work very closely with them. Therefore, we had a couple of sessions here in school. And for understanding the cybersecurity angle, they work closely with some people from there. So we did identify the people who were required to make their this successful. And second thing that I want to say is that I think that CBSE, we do say that we are kind of guided a lot by the curriculum. Any system is guided by the curriculum. But within the framework, there is also enough opportunity to remain flexible, especially till the time the kids are in grade 10. I mean, with the fact that I do know that in CBSE grade 10, the syllabus is kind of not so difficult. It's manageable result because it's a national curriculum. It percolates to every level. So it's that easy that it's kind of achievable for most students. And what we need to do is that we need to keep this component of the curiosity alive and maybe very purposefully build up every year a module. If you don't want to do too much, do an interdisciplinary unit every year. Every grade, every class does one IDU or one innovative project every year. Even if it's not very big. So we have interdisciplinaries every year in MYP. Every single grade does it. But we also have our CBSE that does it. So they also they don't call it IDU, they call it by a different name. But they are also doing these projects.
Yeah, I feel like, at CBSE, we do a lot of group projects and individual projects and all that. And so that is incorporated in the curriculum. And what happens is sometimes, whatever it is, whether you are CBSE or IB, at times at the end of the day, we are a pretty mark oriented driven society, you can say. Our education is pretty mark driven. So what we have done is, we have graded our projects. So there is a certain kind of grade which is given to, even whether it is a group project. So somehow, even though maybe, this can be a topic for debate, whether, projects should be graded. So only because of the grades, whether the students are doing or no. But what I feel is, if that is something which is going to drive a group of students to do potentially something good, to decide a problem, to start for a solution, I think why not? So we have these graded projects also, which are a very important integral part of CBSE, and they are, I think they are hubs, they are incubators of design thinking, because this is the first place wherein the students are coming together, exploring possibilities, zeroing on solutions, trying to, put it on paper, and then designing prototypes, trying to implement it. And you won't believe, these students also follow the iterative process wherein they go back to whatever they have done and they try to improvise on the solutions what they themselves have created. So I think that is the best part of what these students are doing. So whether it is CBSE, IB, or even state boards, they are coming up with so many ideas, So Unconsciously, we all are doing design thinking even at the primary level, the pre-primary level. Small little thing like, senior KG children, we realize that, we have a process wherein after meals they are expected to keep their plates, or they stack up their toys in different places. So how do you go about it? We color coded so many things and all that, because if you try to teach a 5 6 year old, with only instructions, they are not able to do it. Color coding things helped us to find solutions to so many problems which we were struggling to in terms of class management. So at every level this design thinking is happening, is taking place, growing, blossoming, and we are getting the results.
Amazing. So while we're talking about design thinking, I think you all have fairly covered on one of the questions I wanted to take on was how do we empower the teachers? Because in implementing the whole teaching learning ecosystem also needs to be empowered, and we need to create the right environment. Though part of it has been covered, I'd love if any of you all would like to add something to it in terms of supporting or creating an environment in which innovation can thrive, and how do we empower the entire ecosystem? Right, Dipika ma'am said, allowing mentors and access to those. Aparna ma'am, you want to share something?
Yeah, there's one point, I really need to put across. You know what? We are now into this winds of change have started now really blowing into the education industry, and everybody is accepting it. The parents are ready, the students are ready, the management, wants to do everything. We need to though devote time to our teacher. We need to change her, we need to change him. There's a pretty traditional mindset which is there. I am coming also from the old school, and it required really a lot of conferences, workshops, trainings for me to change, to assimilate new thought. So this first the teacher needs to undergo. First she needs, I feel, she needs to be oriented about what is design thinking, how it can be incorporated into the curriculum. Because the first thing when you try to say something, everybody says, where is the time? I need to complete my syllabus. I need to complete this. I need to give my marks. I need to make these sheets ready. This is a fact. So we need to first change the teacher in terms of orientation. We need to organize more workshops, more conferences, more professional development programs, wherein the teacher is thoroughly immersed into the idea of design thinking, the process of design thinking, and how it is going to be more helpful to her. So first we have to initiate the change at the teaching level. The faculty needs to be really oriented to adapt, to adjust, and to implement design thinking into classroom. That is what I really feel. This is the first challenge, or this is the first thing we need to do. That's what I feel. And you cannot just focus on the elite school and the schools which have everything, but this really needs to percolate down right to the state run schools also, so that everybody is benefited by this process. This is what I really feel. It's the first thing we need to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, Pooja ma'am, you wanted to share something.
Yes. So, I don't run a school which is K to 12,
Yes.
but I do run a college for undergrad and a creative education at that. So I'll start from the beginning. So the reason itself that I started with the BRIC group of institutes was because I saw there was a lot of potential in having better education systems, better teaching methodologies, and better learning environments. Now, when I say better learning environments and teaching methodologies, you obviously have to stick to a certain curriculum that you are following, right? But what we do at BRIC, for teachers especially, uh, unlearning is very, very important, not only for students, but for teachers also. So when we start the new semester, all our teachers of one particular class, let's say for the first semester, they all come together with a pre-thought lesson plan. Now, this lesson plan has nothing to do with the curriculum, honestly. It is about the outcome of what is required at the end of the semester. What do the students need to know at the end of the semester to be able to give their exam and know their facts, right? Then the teachers come together. They come with a singular project that can be intertwined with all subjects together. so that the students don't have to complete sheets only in one subject and then be bothered about when do I do the other submission. So the submissions become combined, the problem becomes overall, and the solution also becomes overall, with different subjects coming together to form that one answer. So the understanding of that subject becomes so easy for the students that I'm very, very happy to tell you that, Dipika, I was talking about coaching classes earlier. Even for architecture, I had always seen that my sister is an architect. She studied in a different college, and they always had tuitions for for all the theory subjects. For example, theory of structures, anything to do with physics, anything to do with calculations, and then they would get really, really overwhelmed. So they have tuitions. From Brick, nobody goes for any extra classes. They all learn in college itself or from our teachers if they need external additional help. But because of this understanding of how is this subject applicable to me, where is it going to be useful? If that is something which goes along with the theory of it, the practical aspect, then it just stays in the mind of the students. And that's what we do for our teachers. We give them that freedom to take on the subject and own it as their own, so that you can't train someone to be creative, unfortunately. It's an inherent quality, but you can give the space and the freedom for them to think creatively, come up with those solutions, and then decide on whether it will apply or not apply, looking at the environment and the culture of your institutes.
Absolutely. That's wonderful to know how you're implementing that at the post-grad and the grad level as well. Dipika ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, so I would say that for me, the first step would be to create a safe space for staff. We always think about safe spaces for students, but I think the staff needs to have a safe space, because to be constantly being judged and pegged is not a happy space for anyone. I would hate to be in that kind of a space, and that develops insecurity in people. Uh, and insecurity often leads to use of means that are probably not ethical. It often leads to that. So for me, step one is creating a safe space. And for the second one is that when we have, wherever I have worked, and here, of course, we have very stringent, I wouldn't call it stringent, but a very different kind of a review cycle where people kind of articulate who they are. It's important to articulate who you are. We are 40 and 45 and we do not know who we are. What sort of a person am I? What do I admire about others? Who do I even idolize, and why do I even idolize them? Identify. Where do I want to move? I mean, I want to be, people will always say, okay, I want to be the coordinator. Then I want to be the HM. Then I want to be the principal. But there's only one. The fact is there is only one corner office in the school, and that belongs to the principal. And a principal is not very different from the headmistress or headmaster. It's simply that you are in the right place at the right time in the interview. That's it. It was your lucky day. There is no big difference between you both. Your lucky day, you got it. So what I'm saying is here is you have to recognize who are the people who are a little rebellious at heart, who have been there, but who want to innovate, who want to practice, bring new practices to you. Everybody is not a swimmer. You'll have swimmers, you'll have floaters, you'll have sinkers. You have to identify who are the ones, for me, who are the swimmers here. And those swimmers and then the floaters, they work together to handhold the ones who are sinking. So it's an ecosystem in which for innovation and this, we believe, I mean, at least I have tried to create several levels in there. So there are these key people who are absolutely like this, and they catch everything very quickly. They bring new things. And in turn, we have the second level who are the floaters, who kind of take it up and then they work on their capacity building on their own. They are very proactive. And then there is the third level, which needs greater support with this. Now, the interesting part is that the younger ones who are coming in, the young staff that's coming in, they're teaching me so much. I mean, I really get impressed with young people because they are so bright, and I mean, they're so confident. I wasn't half as much when I was their age. I wish I could go back in time. But when I look at them, the way they take up technology, they are my rebels. And they are the ones who really take up anything new that comes in. So learn to recognize the potential of the young. Innovation and design thinking, even if we have been doing it for years in different ways. But these are the guys who are kind of more clued on to what's happening. They are the guys who have grown up more with data, the analytics of it. These are the guys who know mapping the two things together very well. So use them wisely. I mean, we have the curriculum and we have the experienced staff there, but build an ecosystem where the strengths of each other complement. So instead of bringing up hierarchies, bring innovative ways of creating flatter structures. The flatter your structure is, the better you are going to be at bringing design thinking. Because if you're going to sit in a team with the new bias and people who think I have been doing this for 20, 30 years and I know the best, you're not going to be able to come together to create something new. To come together, create flatter structure. So as a head, I think these are the things that I need to do, and or the senior leadership team needs to do from our end, which we have managed to do successfully. And I think also by design, there is a conscious effort to give these roles to the younger staff that we have. Like right just now, recently, we have a collaboration with MIT. So there's a STEAM lead that we had to depute. The STEAM lead now we've created is just a young guy of 32 years old. And I think he's perfect for this role. I mean, we have other people who've been teaching these subjects for long, but I think this guy is absolutely perfect for this role. And he's doing fine. So for me, I would say a little rebellion, recognition of worth in the young people, and being able to kind of recognize that at all stages we'll be compromised by the budgets and the curriculums, but then we have to go beyond and find ways to do that. So this is my recipe. At least I can say that so far, touch wood, it's holding me through everything. And I learn a lot. I mean, I always catch them and say, okay, I'm struggling now. You tell me how. But I can only say the one strength that I have is because professionally I'm a qualified civil engineer. So because I did my engineering and I have that kind of an inclination, so it's a little easier for me to get clued on with whatever is happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So true. I resonate.
Yeah, actually, we all resonate with what Deepika ma'am said just now. You really have to keep the floaters and the swimmers together so they help kind of the sinkers to hold on, and then probably first they learn to float and then they learn to swim, and who knows, maybe they win the race also. So that is something I really agree with, and it really, I think, resonates with all of us as educators. There is just one thing I would like to, add is, if in design thinking, if, along with the curriculum, what the teacher specializes in, if the projects are aligned with her curriculum, I think it makes it much more easier also, because she's already clued on to all the principles, the theories of that, and then she will take it up with more enthusiasm. And if we have this interdisciplinary approach, like sustainability with all the values and all that, if all these things go together, I think design thinking is here to stay, and we are going to move ahead with it, in full steam, and it's got a great future.
Absolutely. No, and I completely resonate, like you rightly said, with all of these ideas. And I see its relevance not just in education, but the potential that the child's mindset, the whole shift in mindset of looking at problems is changing because that goes back to their personal lives as well. I've seen parents coming and saying, much I see my child use design thinking even in, setting up their room. And that's what I see the shift, that it's translating and going beyond subjects and projects and also spilling over and creating a ripple impact in the personal life, in the mindset, which will, affect the future careers, options, possibilities that they see in their lives. So wonderful. So moving ahead, I'd like to briefly address, and maybe we'll begin this time with Aparna ma'am. What are some of the key challenges that you think? We've spoken about a few, but if you briefly want to touch upon that, on incorporating design thinking in schools, and how can they be addressed?
See, the first thing what we need to do is we need to empower the teachers. We need to really give them a lot of professional guidance as to how to go about with design thinking, because they may lack the familiarity or the confidence also in facilitating a design for a particular project. So the first thing what we need to do is we need to empower the teacher. The second problem, what I see in most of the schools, not only the top schools or the teacher or the schools which have, who have been blessed with a lot of finance and good infrastructure and excellent parental support. Beyond that, also, we have quite a few schools who may be struggling with infrastructure. Then there is, we don't have too much of hands-on space to facilitate these designs and all that. So this is one, what you can say, challenge. Limited access to materials, tools, or physical space is there. And then we also have, schools which do not have the luxury of time. Time in the sense is, those schools may be operating in shifts. So after a shift gets over, the second shift begins. So we don't have the time which is required for an idea, to be sown, watch it propagate, bloom, blossom a little, give it that time, initiate a project, the time required for the project to initiate and to move forward. We may not have the luxury of time. Not many schools have that space kind of a thing. So that is one challenge I can also see. Also, there may be resistance, you won't believe it, there may be resistance even from the parents, even from the administrators, that you're wasting so much of time on all this. Okay, so these are all the challenges which I feel can hamper proper design thinking process. I do understand it is the onus, it's the onus of the principal, the head, the coordinators probably, to take all these things forward. But there could be traditional limitations, there could be limitations in terms of thinking as to how much and how we can take it forward in a school setup. Also, traditional assessment never can, what you can say, it will not align with this entire design thinking process. Plus, we are not still empowered with proper assessment tools. Like after a project is completed, you mark it. What about the assessment of the iterative process? And yes, of course, I also agree that not every project must be assessed. But as I said, we are still even today a mark-oriented, mark-driven education sector. So we need to find proper assessment tools to assess this entire process, right from empathy to implementation to the last point, that is the iterative process, wherein you go back, you visit your solutions, again you make improvement, and again you present a fresher, a newer, a better version to the solution what you have already offered. So these are the challenges I feel. Of course, it's not the end of the day, and there are solutions to all this. But as you asked me about the challenges, right now, these are the challenges that come to my mind when you ask me about it.
Okay, so I'm going to rephrase this question. I completely see this as a grassroots reality across schools, considering the length and breadth of the country and the diversity. Dipika ma'am, I'm going to tweak this question slightly because I had quoted something in one of the last panels that we had, and since she mentioned about the mark system and assessment, the narrative was how do we make children from being markable to remarkable,
Remarkable.
right? And if we really have to make them remarkable, which is the larger objective of education in itself, then what needs to change, right? What is the gap, and how do we as design thinking practitioners in a way as educators fill that gap? Like, what's your perspective? Like, because one of the processes that we use in our organization before we even use design thinking, the first process is the HMVs. How may we, and then look at the target audience, look at the problem, and look at the benefits that they could decide. So what is your take? How do we shift that narrative from markable to remarkable and fill that gap in?
First of all, what I want to say, I mean, of course, I would say I used a word rebel, and I think that's a word for me, probably in long, big ways, because my first address to students is I don't care for a 500 on 500. I don't even care for a 450 on 500. I don't care for a 45 in DP. I don't care for marks at all. I can say that. because my life and experience has taught me that my most fantastic students, and I have been teaching for long. I still haven't quit teaching. I still teach something to diploma students. I was teaching math till last year, and I'll be doing TOK this year. So I always say one thing, that my most fantastic students have not been the ones who ended up even with a 14. They've been probably somewhere in there. My best student in life could not even complete his diploma for different reasons. And yet I consider him to be my teacher because I learned life's most powerful lessons from him. And he's just a 31-year-old kid today. But I consider that he has been my teacher in life, and I have never met anybody as powerful as him in terms of what I describe as learning in life. So when I look at that, I often talk to students about is this fascination with marks. I do understand, because large numbers, how do universities have a criteria to kind of identify who are the students that they want to have? Obviously, they have to have a cutoff in terms of marks, etc. But I do also understand that being able to achieve marks through a set pattern, and it's a kind of it's not even a concept mastery, it's an examination mastery. In our schools, if we are not teaching a concept mastery, we are teaching an examination mastery. There's a trend, we teach to a trend, and we ensure that the students end up getting good grades and they get into good universities because it's a matter of their future. But we are also seeing today newspaper reports which clearly say that people coming out of IITs and IIMs are also not able to secure good jobs. Correct? We are sitting in very unpredictable times. So in that times, this whole fascination with marks needs to be reevaluated and re-understood. And I think the idea of design thinking, which we say, is because it connects completely with the innate curiosity that a human being is born with. If you allow it to grow within the school system, and if you kind of educate the parents, I fully agree with Dr. Aparna when she says that the parents also would resist it. Yes, because the parents are for the want of a better word, they are unaware of what this is all about. There's a kind of a mystery attached to it. If you demystify something and it becomes accessible, you lose the fear. But if you do not demystify something for me and it remains an unknown, I will be scared to get into an unknown territory. So more awareness of this with the parent community, respecting the innate curiosity of young people, allowing them to be there. And what will happen? Tell me, if a student who's 14-year-old working on a project, or 3 students working on a project say, today we don't feel like, and they are great with their English, etc., whatever, and they say, today we don't want to attend this class and we want to do work on your project. Yeah, by all means. And here I would say we have the flexibility. Okay, go work on your project. It's all right. But the onus of catching up is on you. You see, so here, what are we doing? Instead of us taking the responsibility of educating them, we are also placing the responsibility of your education on yourself. So we are empowering you. Building a culture of agency and empowerment is extremely important. I spoke about the staff empowerment. Staff empowerment, yes, it's one thing. Although I have to say that it's very rare that you come across. I have also been a staff member at one time. It's very hard to actually encounter staff empowerment in true sense. But I think student empowerment and student agency, you are responsible for what you are doing. That's another way of doing it. Then the third constraint is spaces. Yes, we also have a space constraint because we are a very large school in terms of numbers, but smaller space for us. So of course, what we do is, and that's the reason we encourage students to, you can stay back after school if you wish to. We have the admin that works till a certain time. You are free to work till that time, even beyond that, as long as our security team is informed, and people can stay in school and they can work till later time. We have some staff that stays back till late time. We have people who come on Saturdays and who want to work on because they feel more comfortable working in their own space. And more than anything, I have to say something which is more on the personal front. This is a profession dominated by women. The most important thing that needs to be done is for the women staff to understand that your work is also as important as the work of your other half. So
Correct.
respect it. Respect it. Respect your
I
professional obligations. Respect that you need to grow. Respect the fact
Music
that
to our
you need to,
ears.
yeah, and respect that you need to be making a contribution. Respect that you are responsible for children. And this work is as important as the work of somebody who is probably earning 5 times as you or 4 times as you. But your work is as important. So I think this is something That is very important. And if we manage to achieve all these things, I think we have a nice mixture ready where we can say, okay, this is something we are bringing to you, and we are giving you the space and the trust that you can move ahead with this. We are there with you. We can see great things happen.
Right.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank
I
you so much. I
agree.
think it's a
Yes.
yeah, it's a great
No,
symphony
I
of
agree with
thoughts.
Deepika ma'am. You won't believe this is the same thing we keep on emphasizing during our, teacher one-to-one interactions, group interactions, that your work is as important as that of your better half. Excellent. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Pooja ma'am, over to you. You know, you've been in the industry, you've been in the design side, as an educator and as an, industry leader, as an entrepreneur. So, looking ahead, what is the vision, for the future of design thinking in education that you see, and how do you see that evolving, if I have to say, or impacting, the environment? What are some of the changes that you foresee, or the larger vision for design thinking in education?
Right. So of course, this is a very elaborate question, and I may not be able to do justice to it. But from my point of view, I can definitely give my input here. Um, so we are in a time where the exposure is extremely high. We sitting in one place, we know what is happening all around the world, and if that is not inspiring, then what is, right? So things are changing, questions are changing, students way of learning is changing. In fact, teachers are no more just like information givers or teachers are not there to prepare students. Teachers role will be just to prepare the student to be able to learn new things so that they can accommodate themselves where they want to be. So like for example, back in school, we were talking about markable and remarkable. Back in school, I wasn't even markable, honestly. My teachers didn't like, some of my teachers didn't like me, some of my teachers really, really liked me. But I was a very bad student. In fact, I was in a boarding school, so the whole onus of responsibility was on me. And I remember a teacher coming up to me and telling me, my computer science teacher, saying that, Pooja, you're not smart enough for computers. I think you should drop it and do arts or something. Otherwise, you will fail. And I did not have a parent to turn to in my boarding school. We weren't allowed phone calls back then. It was way back in time. And it just fired me completely. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. Thank you for your suggestion. And I'm not going to leave computer science. I obviously changed my way of learning what I was doing. I mean, I was just a lazy student. I wasn't a dumb student, right? But then that hadn't struck me back then. And at the end of it, the 10th grade, I topped the computer science exam in my class. Like at least in my school, I was the topper of that class. So that teacher, even today, can't believe that I run an education institute. What he saw was just my weakness. He did not bother to see what I could be able to do or the potential in me in some other ways. So I think teachers need to become a little more mindful about these kind of things that come up with students that are rebellious, students that don't want to sit in the class, students that don't want to study because it's just boring or they're lazy or whatever their reasons might be. Just recognizing what they will be able to do better and nurturing them in that area is going to get us remarkable human beings at the end of it. And only then will our country as a developed country will be able to thrive, because then each person is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that is something that design thinking will change this particular thought process, because even teachers are thinking of innovative ways to teach students that need differential attention or way of teaching. And that's why even BrickETC came into the picture, where we have like courses that are in so many various fields, that if some child is interested in that field, they get that freedom to get the exposure, experience it, try things out, and see that, okay, maybe they are not intelligent in certain areas, but they can be super amazing in some different areas altogether. And that confidence itself will drive them out of the laziness or the rebellion. So that is something that the shift of the teacher's way of thinking and innovative ways of teaching itself is something that I see coming, going ahead.
Wow, wonderful. So I love how this whole discussion has changed and navigated from design thinking as a problem solving and innovation tool to a shift in mindset that the whole ecosystem needs through the design thinking process, And that's where I'm going to come to Dipika ma'am as a closing question because as a school which has proactively participated in the Innoventure Challenge, which has design thinking as a very crucial process, your students have been a part of the Trailblazer process fellowship that we host, and they've come up with wonderful projects, ideas, and initiatives. I'd love to know, the impact that this change in narrative from can I to I can, from what can I do about it, and being a spectator to the problems in society to I can do something about it. What has been the impact of, processes like intervention, the others on student learning outcomes and perspectives towards life? Ma'am, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was coughing, so I put myself on mute. So I think the biggest change is a shift in awareness that we are part of a larger ecosystem, that we are not just simply belonging to a family, and my parents do something for me and I owe it to them. It's moving into the wider perspective of that we are a part of community, and especially because of the fact that we work with UNICEF very closely and we have the SDGs also embedded into the curriculum right from grade 1. It is becoming increasingly aware to them that globally too we are facing some common challenges which are now becoming more and more apparent. For example, this we've been forever been talking about climate change, though in India we don't speak about it at all. We talk about it on platforms, but not much work is being done in that direction. But the fact that we are now visibly seeing a change in climate. In the recent years, the kind of landslides, the kind of floods, the kind of accidents that we've had. We basically are seeing these things now becoming real in front of us. So what's happening is that the students becoming more and more exposed to it. They understand that wherever I go in the world, and even if I move to a country like a US or a UK or wherever I might go and live, I'm still going to be facing one or more of these challenges. It's going to come my way. And therefore, a collective responsibility. I'm a part of the collective consciousness. I'm also a part of the collective responsibility. So the student awareness is now reaching a level. And I must say that these students, though we do speak of them in they do have other challenges. Their EQs are definitely something that I'm not very happy about. But I would say that they're highly evolved in terms of, yeah, I know Pooja is laughing because she's young. but I definitely have a challenge with the EQs of younger generation. But I can say that in many ways, they are far more evolved. And therefore, I would say that this awareness has come into students. The second thing, the fact is that we are a part of the social impact thing and we have social impact awards. So every year, a lot of students come together and they send their social impact awards, whatever they have created. And people get chosen for large scholarships. Scholarship because they get the money and they use that money to kind of work with the community. So for example, this year, two of our students, they got something close to $40,000. Wow. So they received it to work with the community because their proposal was so great. And they had already been working on their proposal for about 8 months. They had something concrete to show. So this is what they got back. And from the central body. And similarly, there was somebody else who got a 23K and things like that. So students do understand that if I have something very viable, then I know that I'm going to be able to make a long-term difference. And as I said, this innovation and incubation, that is something that we talk about all the time. And it's already started with EduGrow. I see this growing. Second example of this is there's a government school here called Keshapuram School. So about 3 years ago, when the students first went to the school, it is a school meant for the underprivileged part of the area which it is a part of. There was nothing in the school and pigs were roaming around. And last year, they have changed everything totally on their own. They did the donation drives, they collected the money, they collected the resources, they did everything. And last year we had the inauguration. It was mind-boggling to see what a group of young people could achieve. I mean, it was transformation. And then that school has now become, it's kind of an adopted school for us. And we are on our way to adopting 2 more schools. It's become an adopted school. So we work very closely with them, not just the students, but we have staff that works very closely with them. So, increasingly, wherever you see opportunities and you engage with them in a manner where you are not just giving them something, where you are empowering them to function on their own. And I think that is how the students have changed. They understand that we are not doing a joy of giving week. We are doing an empowerment week. How are you empowering the initiatives you are engaged with? Don't just collect money and give it. That anybody can do. But how are you going to empower them? Find ways. So I think this is a paradigm shift that we are working on. And I feel this is the way, if we kind of keep things in the right direction. And there's one message which I always give to everyone, and which is everything will fade. We were taught things like don't tell lies, don't steal, blah, blah, and all that through moral stories and Panch Tantra. But the basics of it lay in a word called ethics. And if that is it, and that is my innate problem with the young generation today, the generation that is chasing the EQ and the ethics, the 2 E's are something that bothers me a lot. So I try to give the message to them as and when I can. I mean, whenever I'm addressing, I do bring that into focus, that everything that you do in life will be right if you keep the word ethics in mind.
Yes.
If that's your
Right.
Yeah.
Right. On that note, thank you so much. It's been wonderful a session. I think the whole discussion, the way it's navigated, has been extremely beautiful. And to summarize, and like since you touched upon to the latter part of it on the ethics and on empowering, but I also feel like design thinking and such processes, they don't just we're not just empowering somebody else, but in the sense in the process we're empowering ourselves. Like I always tell our students, it's not what you are creating, but who you're becoming in the process is so much important. And therefore, processes like this, if the schools can incorporate, I think we're not just contributing, but empowering ourselves in the process at large at all levels. So on that note, thank you so much to everyone joining us today. Uh, for all those who are listening to us, we also host India's
Thank you
largest
so much. It was
innovation
really good.
challenge for children. And we'd love to have all the students in schools being a part of that process, just like some of the brilliant proactive schools here today. And for all the contributions, the insights, if you all want to connect with our eminent panelists, go check them out on LinkedIn. And they're an amazing work they do in their institutes with Oakridge International School, Gachibowli, with SVM School, and with BrickETC. We'd love to have you connected with them. So on that note, thank you to all our panelists for your contributions, for your insights, for deep diving into that topic, for picking out things that really matter and voicing them out, which is the true sense of design thinking, that each one gets to exert their choice, voice, and work in more purposeful and meaningful ways in society. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Pranjal. Thank
Pranjal.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Aparna. Thank you,
Having
Dr.
us.
Pooja. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dipika ma'am, Pooja, Pranjal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Have
Yeah,
a great day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.